Hello?
All righty. Hi, everybody.
Can you hear me?
Welcome, welcome. Is that Miss McMillan?
Yes, can you
Everybody
hear
say hi to Terry McMillan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Can everyone say hi?
Hi there. Thank you.
Terry, she can hear us, right?
Yes.
Great.
So we're tuning in at Milk and Honey. It's a new local coffee shop here in Wilmington, Delaware. It's the home of the Flat White.
Oh, I could use some coffee.
So anyway, we're just so honored that we have the iconic, the New York Times best-selling author, Terry McMillan, and we're going to be doing a book talk on her newest book called "It's Not All Downhill from Here." And what's so great about this book is that this book was released in March, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and so I will always have fond memories of this book because it was just a great reprieve. It was a great distraction to tune into Loretta's life while CNN and Fox News were reporting how many COVID deaths and what the numbers were. And so I'm just so grateful that you provided an excellent escape for our community.
Well, thank you. It wasn't for me.
And
I was supposed to go on a 16-city book tour, and it had to be canceled.
wow.
And it's the first time in like 25 years it's ever happened.
But there are just so many themes in the book that are ripe for discussion. It touches on family, friends, mental illness, everybody's favorite, aging, widowhood, and much more. And so we're going to go ahead and open up our discussion with Ms. McMillan reading an excerpt from the novel.
Are there are no, it's doing something weird. You see that?
That's my bad. Hold on. There we go.
There are no children in there. Are there?
No.
Huh? Did someone say yes?
No. This is a very mature audience.
Okay, I'll just read the opening. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, I'll just read like 2.5 pages and that's it, okay?
Okay.
And forgive me because it'll be hard for me to look out at you guys while I'm reading. So forgive me for looking down, okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
They can?
Yes,
Okay. I don't want another surprise party, which is just one reason why a few weeks ago when my husband Carl called while I was walking our dog BB King to the dog park and asked what I wanted to do for my birthday this year, I politely said, baby, let's try to figure out how to get our second win. At first, Carl high-pitched chuckled like he was a soprano or something, and then he said, well, we need a boat. I chuckled right back, even though I was serious as a heart attack. Don't you worry, Miss Lowe, I've got you covered, he said as he hung up. I knew he really didn't get my drift. What I meant was, since we both had more days behind us than we have ahead of us, how about we try to figure out what we can do to pump up the volume? It's not that our life is boring. Well, maybe it is a little. But even though we don't do very many things that generate excitement, I still love him more than I do my Twizzlers. Carl is a retired contractor who refuses to retire. And after 30 years of all work and no play selling hair and beauty products in 2 stores too many, I don't exactly qualify as a thrill a minute either. I'm sorry. I released BB King's leash inside the dog park, but he just stood there shivering, as if he were waiting to be invited to participate in some activity that didn't require him to run or jump. In human years, he and I soon will be the same age, 68. His whiskers and eyebrows are peppered with gray, but unlike me, BB doesn't dye his hair. He is our 3rd German Shepherd, and I don't want to think about how long it'll be until he doesn't want to or can't hop in the back seat of our Volvo station wagon, which I will drive until, like me, it stops running. I sat on the green meadow bench and watched him sniff a friendly French poodle. I realized I was hoping and praying I wasn't going to have to sit through yet another lackluster birthday party where nobody even thinks about dancing until they hear a song you have to be damn near 70 to remember, which I suppose now includes me. And that's if you call doing the cha-cha-cha and flats or espadrilles or 2-inch wedgies with rubber soles to a beat they all call differently dancing. I don't. I watch music videos on YouTube. I find myself rocking in my future size 12 hips, swaying and swaying my shoulders and popping my fingers to the likes of Single Ladies or Uptown Funk by that cute little Bruno Mars until I have to wipe my forehead. I have not forgotten how to dance. In fact, sometimes Carl will sit in his leather recliner, lean way back, and just watch me swirl around in my 3-inch heels, which I wear to work every day because I like to appear glamorous. In those moments, I feel pretty and sexy and 40. Carl just nods his head like he's agreeing and pops his fingers until the smile on his luscious lips begins to disappear. And then he might hold up his index finger, suggesting that I give him a minute, but don't stop dancing, and slowly push himself up to the standing position and limp down the hallway to take one of his little blue pills. Oh, hell, here I go again. Meandering. I'm just going to have to stop apologizing for it because from what I've learned reading my AARP newsletter, this is only the beginning. Truth be told, forgetting what I was talking about and going off on tangents isn't completely new to me. Back in my 20s, I smoked a lot of reefer with my friends. We'd sit in a circle and on the floor on giant pillows and have deep conversations about the purpose of life or something having to do with God or how we were going to change the world. But then we'd all just stop because we were suddenly mesmerized by that lava lamp. Then somebody would realize they were one step away from freaking out and jump up to a standing position in order to snap out it. And somebody would say, what the hell were we talking about again? And since not one of us had a clue, we just start passing a joint again until the next philosophical inquiry overtook our minds. But thank God I got tired of thinking about things that didn't matter and realized I liked the way I felt when I wasn't under the influence of anything. And when I didn't like how I felt, it was still a hell of a lot easier to figure out how to deal with it when my head was clear. Anyway, now I'm a senior citizen. I'm a certified senior citizen, and my mind has earned the right to go wherever it wants. So I decided that when I can't remember something, it must not have been that important anyway. But sometimes when I do remember, it feels like an accomplishment. Thank you.
Yay, so good.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Thank you.
You're
Okay.
right.
Yeah, that was really loud. I don't know if I did. I
Okay,
can't see.
so my first question for you, in a 1992 LA Times article, you said, dissatisfaction makes me right. Things that I
What?
really think, you said, dissatisfaction
Oh,
makes me
oh.
right. Things that I really think should be different. What did dissatisfaction and desired change prompted you to write, it's not all downhill from here?
Well, I don't really know if dissatisfaction applies to every book. It's some kind of angst, something that I think is broken or misunderstood that probably that I don't understand. And I want to figure it out. But, you know, in this book, I mean, I'll put it this way. On Sunday, I turned 69. And anyway, but you know, when I started writing this book, I was 67 when I first started writing it. And, you know, I have a lot of friends. Years ago, I used to drink and I stopped drinking because a few drinks and I was drunk and it didn't make any sense. And so over the years, you know, you learn as you begin to age, especially, you know, my son is 36, that there are things that you do when you're younger that can kill you. And they can destroy you. And not only that, but you realize that, you know, you're not going to be 25 or 30 or 35 for the rest of your life. And you look up and you're like 60 and you think, whoa. And a lot of my friends, I have friends and family members who have already died. from all kinds of things. And a lot of it had to do with things that they did to themselves. And it scared me. And years ago, I was diagnosed that I could be diabetic. But, you know, I was killing the Twizzlers and all kinds of stuff, which I did put in the book. But I realized that, you know, I mean, I haven't had a drink in, it'll be 38 years in February, because my family was full of alcoholics and all kinds of stuff. And I just realized that if I wanted to slide into home and live a healthy, long life, because my mother died at 59, and a lot of my family and friends, the younger siblings, are gone. And I said, if I'm going to die, I don't want it to be because of something I did to myself. And so that was the motivation behind the story, because a lot of people do think when you're 60 that you're almost dead, you know, and that you can't have fun, you're boring. And I didn't buy it, because I mean, even now I don't feel like I'm going to be 69. This is nothing like a lot of the people that I know. And I'm not talking about how I look, and I have on a ton of makeup. But, you know, there are just things that we can do to extend and improve the quality of our lives. And nobody else can do it but us. And so I wanted to destroy the myth that it was all downhill from here, you know, because you can slow it down based on a lot of the choices that we make. And as a result of writing the book, that's what I found I was trying to live my life the same way. It doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not trying to be perfect, or not trying to look 50. But that I'm talking about our health, you know, not being afraid to try new things, to be more adventurous. And if you want to go back to college at 60, that's your business. You can do it. And a lot of people really do think that there's a certain age, that there's this line of demarcation where it really, and I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. That's a Serena Williams, girl.
So you mentioned Twizzlers. You also mentioned Roscoe's Fried Chicken and Waffles a lot. Are you a fan as well?
I don't want to say no. Everybody in my family is. I mean, everybody I know is, you know. I mean, I love fried chicken, but I have fried chicken maybe 3 times a year, 4 times a year. And sweet potato pies. I don't eat sugar, but I haven't had sugar. I eat sugar at Thanksgiving and Christmas. Sweet potato pie and a peach cobbler.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And sometimes bread pudding. But I do it once a year, and that's enough for me. And I don't. And if I decided that I wanted to have a peach cobbler, I would make one. But I haven't felt like that, because it feels like the sugar is like squirting out my ears. It's a horrible feeling. And I love peach cobbler.
So just like, you know, Loretta, you're a baby boomer. And
her name is Laretha.
Laretha, I'm sorry. Oh, I stand corrected. Oh my goodness, Laretha.
That's okay.
Laretha.
That's okay.
You know, we have so many. We're so polarized in so many ways in our country, and one sign of polarization is there's a generational divide between baby boomers and the younger generations. I mean, you know, thus they've created the catchphrase "Okay, boomer," implying that baby boomers are out of touch. And so I wanted to ask you: does Laretha's story, does this book, does it challenge or legitimize that phrase?
I don't really know. First of all, what age group? What age group are the boomers again?
Well, boomers are 1946 to 1964. So roughly 74 to 55, 56.
74 to 56.
Mm-hmm.
You mean 56 to 74?
Yes.
And what's your question about boomers? What about them?
Well, you know, there's this phrase that proliferates social media called "Okay, Boomer." When a baby boomer says something that the younger generation doesn't like, they usually say "Okay, Boomer." And so I just, wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Oh, see, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. So
Okay.
that just puts me in the next category, which is called old.
Okay.
Okay. I don't really. I mean, my son is 36. Is he a boomer?
No. He's a millennial.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I thought.
Okay, well, conversely, the boomers, the 60 and ups, they think the younger generation, they think that they're entitled, soft, weak, dependent. Do you think that's true?
There's too many stereotypes.
Okay.
There's too many stereotypes. That's one of the reasons why I even wrote this book. It's like, all old people, when they start aging, like they're all alike. And I just don't buy it. We are individuals. And, there are certain things that when young people, when I was younger, just like I used a little thing up here about smoking marijuana, back then, everybody smoked marijuana. Everybody that I know. And, we did other things. We all used to get high. That's how you party. And, you reach a certain point where you just realize this stuff doesn't make any sense. Some people do get there. And, every generation, I think, has its own idiosyncrasies, its own qualities and things that they identify with. And I think that's just part of evolution, to be honest with you. I can get on the phone with my niece, and half the time I don't know what she's talking about. And there are things that we do or that they do, just say on Instagram, that I couldn't even imagine at their age if I would be doing that on Instagram and posting things that, I just can't believe it. But, I don't think there's any real harm in it. I think that I respect young people, and our differences. I just do. I think the things that, and a lot of them don't seem to be as self-destructive as the ones that came before them. It's a lot of folks out here that aren't doing a lot of the same things that folks were doing 30 years ago. A lot of back in the day, I knew people were snorting cocaine and whatever that pipe thing is, and freebasing and all kinds of stuff. And a lot of younger people now, I'm sure they still smoke marijuana. There's nothing wrong with smoking marijuana, even though I don't smoke and I don't like it. But every generation has its own traits and characteristics. And that group, it's sort of like, I don't even know if it's sociological. What's the other word? Never mind. This is what happens when you get old. But I think that each generation has its own traits. And sometimes they learn from the older generations in that there are things that they admire and want to emulate, and then there are things that they don't. And I think that happens with every generation, to be honest with you.
Well, several of your books have been adapted into films, and which is added great visibility to your crafting of books. Do you think Hollywood has done a justice with your books? Are you pleased with how they've casted them in the past?
Yeah. What did I have to compare it to? Just I wrote the story. I wrote a book, and that's the way that I saw and perceived the story. And no matter, whenever you do an adaptation, it is an adaptation. And a lot of times people would say, how come they didn't put that in the book, in the movie? How come, and I was like, you know what? Let me tell you how fast that check cashed. Okay. And, it's just a movie. Yes. And I wrote it the way that I wanted the story to be told. And I respect that they want to make movies out of them. And I take their money, and it has come in handy.
So if you were assigned the role of casting your new book, who would you cast as Carl, Loretta, and Odessa?
I don't know. I really don't. I really don't know. Maybe I would love to see. I mean, somebody is inquiring about it now, but again, when I write a book, even since Waiting to Exhale, I don't think as I'm writing it or after I've written it, ooh, I hope somebody buys a movie rights. That I swear, I do not think that. And when you're it's like when you're writing, it's like being in love. You're overwhelmed, and I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not thinking, and even when I finish it, I'm inside of these characters' hearts and their souls and their lives. When they hurt, I hurt. When they laugh, I laugh. When they cry, I cry. I worry about them just like if I were them. That's what you have to do. You have to jump out of your own skin. And all it requires is a certain level of empathy. And I always write about characters who are definitely, even though I said in this book, you know, she was diabetes, but the bottom line is I'm nothing like this character. I just gave her one of my issues, and I have more to go that I can pass around. But you don't think about, I don't think about you know, how it's going to be as a movie. I don't. I wrote it the way that I wanted it to be received. And the movie is just extra because it's, you know, it's the 2000s. And, you know, I'm not a film critic. And I just don't go that far. But somebody just recently asked me this, and I said, I would like Diana Ross to be, what's her name? Laretha. But I don't know about the other people. Now, I was just asked, I'm not kidding you, like a couple of weeks ago. And I haven't thought about anybody else. I don't start casting the book. I really don't. And I find it kind of tacky and it's also too presumptuous. I do not think that every book that I write is going to be, nor should it be, a movie.
Okay. Well, I remember in your earlier days, especially with Waiting to Exhale and Disappearing Acts, I mean, those are very kind of controversial books. There was a segment of the Black male community that felt like that your book catered to stereotypes of Black men, and they felt maligned.
In what book?
Waiting to Exhale and Disappearing Acts.
See, I don't agree with that.
And so I just wanted to ask you, would you talk about your treatment and crafting of Black male characters in your books?
See, I got the complete opposite when it came to writing Waiting to Exhale. I had so many brothers all over, especially in Chicago, that said, they wanted to know how was I able to capture how they felt. What it was like to be unemployed, what it was like to have to deal with racism as a Black man and all this. And back then, when I was writing about it, I was dealing with, there were a lot of drugs and people doing things. And I didn't get complaints that I know of critically and by Black men. And I read from that book all over in all kinds of neighborhoods. I didn't get that. They wanted to know, how did I know how they felt? And I don't think, and plus, a book is not sociology.
Right.
Okay. And I can't, just like, you have 40 African-American women out here. We all write differently. The way we perceive and represent and portray African-American women, we're all different. So, I mean, what is a Black woman? What is a Black man? A lot of it depends on circumstances. And that's all I did. But I'm not trying to sound defensive because I wrote the book I wanted to write. And a lot of people liked it, including men.
Yes, yes.
And I think I showed them a lot of respect because I do respect Black men.
Amen, amen. You're often credited with pioneering the African-American woman's popular fiction novel. Do you like or dislike that label? Or
popular?
Yes, ma'am.
Popular? Did you say popular?
Yes, ma'am. Or was there simply a huge segment of the reading public that publishers ignored for decades?
Say that part again.
Okay, I'll reread the question here because I think we got cut off. You are often credited with pioneering the African-American women's popular fiction novel. Do you like or dislike that label? Or was there simply a huge segment of the reading public that publishers ignored?
Well, I think that's, first of all, but they started talking like that when Waiting to Exhale came out, because it was a bestseller, and it was on the New York Times for 37 weeks. That's a long time, and it got on my nerves. Every week they'd call me. I had to ask them to stop calling me because I was shocked. There's a difference between, and I think too, there's a difference sometimes when white people try to define you and our work. They add their little spin on it. And people wanted me to think that something being popular meant that it wasn't as valuable as what they call literary and literature and all this. And I just thought, I don't let anybody define me or my work. Wow. And nor did I back then. I wrote a good story that a lot of people obviously identified with and appreciated, and just let it go. Mm-hmm. I didn't apologize for a single word. And the bottom line is that what they weren't used to seeing is Black women in love, having sex, making love, professionals. They made money. They lived on their own. That's why they wanted to add that little bullshit label. Really, that's what it was. It was like they wanted to work. What kind of category? We haven't had a Black woman who's educated and she writes about relationships, and all the women in here are all professionals. Where does that fit? Mm-hmm. Well, it fit where it fit. And
just piggybacking on what you're saying, speaking of labels, my favorite book of yours is your very first book, Mama. And one thing looking at the reviews, one thing that was annoying to me was that they kept comparing it to The Color Purple and calling it an extension of The Color Purple. And so that's something that was really exasperating, when Mama came out in 1987.
But that's what they do. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. Even now there are books by African-American women writers, and it's I've been criticized when race isn't what fuels my book. And my attitude is some of the things that happen to my characters wouldn't happen if they weren't Black. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to spend all day trying to explain that to you. All I can do is show you what my characters happen to be Black. All of our lives are not the same. But one of the things that we do understand is what it feels like to be Black. And I tell the story from that vantage point. I'm not trying to explain anything, especially to white people. I'm not trying to write a book to explain, apologize, get them to understand. They don't know. I'm more interested in how my characters, who are all African-American, get through things. And some of the things have to do with race and some of them don't. Mm-hmm. There's no color on love, disappointment, and it depends on what fuels it. And otherwise, your work can get to be very didactic. And because when I read a lot of books by white writers, I don't think, well, sometimes I do. Oh, gee, these white people are crazy. I don't mean it literally, but it's like, but there are a lot of books about, I have I don't know if you can see, I've got probably about 3,000 books in this loft. And I read books by everybody, by every ethnicity, because I want to know how other people feel in other parts of the world. And guess what? We all tick to the same beat. Suffering and struggling and being in love and heartache and shame and fear and being poor and broke and death and all of that disappointment. We all feel the same way. What fuels it or what makes it, that might be different. And that's what makes it interesting. And because we're all human. And some things happen to us as Black people. I look at, certain parts, you go to Puerto Rico. There's other parts of the world where people, especially people of color, and they don't, people, suffering is suffering. Pain is pain. Having your heart broken is having your heart. Being hungry, not being able to pay your bills. there is no color on that in terms of how it feels inside, you know. And when somebody you love is hurting and they die, they can't pay their rent, all that. I mean, come on. It's the vantage point, and that's the beauty of, to me, of being a human being, is being able to see something from somebody else's point of view.
That's right. That's right. Does anybody here in the audience have a question for?
I was wondering.
For Ms. McMillan? Does anybody here have a question? Yes.
Oh.
Would you please approach? Yep. Approach the mic. Right here?
Hi.
So what was your transition?
I can't quite hear her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What was the transition from writer to now having an agent and getting to that level?
Basically you're asking, how did I get an agent?
Yes, yes.
I think someone told me I needed one back in the day, because I was writing. I belong to a African American writers group. Someone had told me about. Well, I saw it on TV actually in New York. I lived in New York for 15 years, and I went there, and I had been writing poetry, and I was writing this story that was initially called Mama Take Another Step. So I go there, and they said, oh, you have to read something. And I was like, what? Out loud? And there were like 15 people in there, some of whom had been published. And I was like, you know what? I just want to come and watch. And they said, no. And so I had to read this story. And I read the story, and I'm telling you, they were all sitting in a circle. I was a nervous wreck, and I smoked cigarettes then. I sure needed one. But they said afterwards, they just all looked at each other and said, girl, you better get an agent. You got to know. They said, you got an agent? And I said, no. I didn't really know what she was talking about. And I said, no. And then they broke it down to me that, that what you have here, and I think I read what would constitute the first chapter, but they were really impressed and all that. And they said, girl, you need an agent. And then they explained it to me. And I went away to this place called a writer's colony, where you can go and just keep writing, and they give you a place to sleep, and it's free and all that. And I wrote a little bit more, and then I showed it to an agent that I was referred to. And she took me, and then she found a publisher anyway, bottom line is that's how I ended up getting a publisher. But the problem was, she wanted me to change my book. She wanted me, because I pretty much finished it, I think, yeah. She wanted me to change it and end it at a certain place. And I said, that's not the story I'm telling. And she thought she knew better than I did. And I said, that is not the story that I'm telling. And so I called the publisher and told him, I said, I don't like her. And he said, we don't either. And so I fired her. And then I got another agent. I interviewed 3 or 4 others, and one, her name is Molly Friedrich. I've been with her ever since. It's almost like when you fall in love, you kind of know that it's going to last, and she's really smart, and she represents a lot of really fine writers, all different. But if you're writing, you do need an agent, but you need to know when it's right. And if you're a writer, it's good to find some writing groups. It's a really good thing to do, to write when you have to read your work to other people. But just make sure they know what they're talking about. Somebody that's more advanced than you are. And a good writing group that's what will happen. Or take a class,
Hmm.
a workshop at a junior college or a state college. That's a really good thing to do. So you're not just writing in isolation, and it really makes a big difference, a big difference.
All righty. So Tracy, who is tuning in, wants, this is Tracy's comment. She says, I so enjoy your books. You've written for nearly every stage of my life. What are you working on next?
Um, it's I have about 180 pages. Usually they're about 500 type double space pages for a novel. It's in that range, depending. And you know, all I can say is it's a story about a group, about different individuals who all eat at the same diner. And that's all I can say.
Okay.
But the story is told from, you get to see each of their lives inside and outside of the diner.
Okay. All right. There's an audience member that has another question for you.
Ms. McMillan?
Yes?
Who were your influences growing up?
Oh, Zora Neale Hurston. She was a big one. I love James Baldwin. I don't know if when you say growing up, because when I was a youngster, we didn't get to read books by African Americans, if you're talking about African American authors. But you know, James Baldwin. I'm sitting here with all these books, and I'm just, you know, it's hard for me to actually. It's hard. I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. I know this sounds kind of.
How about within your family and friends?
Pardon?
How about within your family and friends? Who were your influences when you were a child, growing up, wanting to be a writer?
I didn't grow up wanting to be a writer. I didn't. I didn't write. My first book was published when I was 30. I think I was 36 or 35, something like that. And you know what? The thing is this, it's hard to say. Can you see this thing up there on the wall? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
We can see
Okay.
it.
Those are 100 essential novels somebody claimed. Okay. And I just put it up there because I don't know half of them. And it's very few by African Americans. And I put it up there on purpose because I realized that, first of all, and it's going to come down, to be honest with you. I usually take it down when I do this, but I like the squares, to be honest with you. I just like the squares. Because, wait, I'll show you something. Wait. This, you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a brother. And I mean, I collect art. That's my weakness. His name is Joe Sam. And I usually, when I do this, I usually put his picture there. But I didn't feel like changing it today. I just like the little squares. But, you know, the thing is this, I must have at least 2,000 books in this house. And, you know, when people ask you who's your favorite this and who's your favorite that, it's almost, and I hate to say it, I mean, and I don't have all of my books. I don't have all of my African-American authors together. I just respect our voices. And again, I can sit here. I mean, there are so many writers, contemporary, African-American writers, contemporary, that I just love. And it's not like I forget about my elders, but you don't separate them that way. You just, it's like if I was teaching a class, I could sit here. I mean, if I was teaching, because I have taught, I'm a tenured professor, believe it or not. But you read certain books for certain reasons, and they move you in a certain way. And some writers, African-American writers, my contemporaries too, it's like I read them and I think, God, I wish I could do that. Or I'm put my head down because I'm crying, or because I just identify emotionally with what the characters are going through. And it's just called respect. And it's kind of hard because a lot of people always ask you, like, who are your favorite writers? Well, that's a loaded question. I mean, you have to give me some years. And not only that, but at my age, I can't remember the years, okay? Seriously, I know what I love. And when people come into my loft, they look and they think, oh, and these books up here, they think they're going to fall off on the floor, but they won't. And when I moved here, I moved Southern California from the Bay Area, and I gave away 3,000 books. A lot of them were paperbacks to the library. I donated them to the library, and mostly in the African-American library where Black folks lived. I wanted to make sure they got to read them. The kids, young people.
Good.
But
Does that answer
there are a lot of writers. There are a lot of books. There are a lot of writers that I love. And the one thing that I do know is that I'm nosy, and I'm curious, and that to me, it says a lot about our humanity. That's all I can say. And I just love. It's almost this is a bad analogy, but it's almost like if you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend when you were in your first year in college or something. There's certain things about them you actually just really loved. Then, fast forward to film, and then, here comes somebody else, and there's some other things that you find out that you like and that move you a little bit more. Doesn't mean that you don't remember or appreciate what you read what you, before, but you evolve. And that's one reason why I think we buy books. And I think music falls into the same category, but I saw Pebbles on something the other night. I said, I thought she was dead, but it's everything has a place. And I don't think that we have to decide who we like best. You know what I mean? And which one, there are certain, and plus we are all influenced by everything. Everything. And everything you read, sometimes it's really subliminal. You don't even realize it until you respond a certain way and you realize that what you understand, sometimes you learn to understand it and appreciate it based on by something that you read. Sometimes it's something that you saw somebody do or hear somebody say. And it's all cumulative. And that's, to me, the beauty of being alive.
Wonderful.
I have another question. When you start your book, do you know the ending?
Well, no. Why would I bother? That to me is called literary masturbation.
Oh, whoa.
No, I wouldn't even waste my energy. No, and I've heard people say that they know how it ends, but writing is a journey, and it's an emotional journey, and I'm a different person when I finish a book. I never know how it's going to end. If I did, why bother? Why bother? No, it's an inquiry. I want to know why we do what we do. What do we get out of it? What happens when you hurt somebody and you know it's going to hurt somebody? What does disappointment feel like? When you're disappointed in yourself, how far are you willing to go to make yourself happy or to make someone else happy? What is it you want your life to add up to? And I don't know. What does it feel when your heart hurts? What does it feel when you lose somebody that you loved? A child, a dog? What does it feel when you are disappointed in yourself? And if you feel insecure or you have hopes and dreams and nobody believes in you. What does that feel like? You know, what happens when you fall down and you get back up? Or what happens when you feel like you can't get back up? There's so many different things that we have to question. And all of them, to me, add up to joy and being better people and try to be honest and do things that are gratifying, but that somebody else will benefit from it besides you.
Wow. Ms. McMillan, here's another question from the live feed. This person wants to know, do you make any decisions about your audiobooks as to who the narrators are?
I have in the past, because I've read a few of them, but I don't like doing it. I read this one, but I like this character. No, I've had other actresses and stuff, other actors and actresses read the book, and I prefer that because it's not fun anyway. It's not fun. You make one mistake, and that on the engineers say they click this button, and I'm just looking at them, and I know that you're going to say, "Oh, okay. You know, who's gonna know I made a mistake? I left that word out." but apparently they do. I've never listened to any of my audiobooks. I can't stand the sound of my own voice, to be honest with you.
Okay, this person also wants to know, do you ever get writers?
How many people out there in the audience are writers?
How many of you are writers? Raise your hand. We probably have about a quarter of the audience here who are writers.
Good. Does anybody write poetry? No? You write fiction?
Fiction?
Short stories? Hello?
Screenplays, I heard.
Where are you guys?
Somebody said screenplay.
Do you see us now?
No?
Plays? There's someone that writes plays?
So who writes short stories? Who writes poetry? No? Oh. You're in Delaware. I've never been to Delaware.
You got to come. We think you, when you come.
No more questions?
Any more questions? Yes. Please approach the microphone.
Give me 1 second.
My first job was at a library, though. Oh.
There she goes.
Maybe just a couple inches. You should be good right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello. My question is.
I can't hear you. I can't hear her.
Come a little closer. Yeah, talk right into the mic.
Okay. My question is out of.
I can't. What? Something happened.
Talking to the microphone.
Okay.
Maybe now.
My question is, out of all of the characters that you've ever written for, is there one that you wish you would have written differently for?
I don't think she can hear you. We see her.
Say one more time.
Did we lose the sound?
Just a moment. We're having a technical difficulty here. Just a moment.
You want to try one more time. Just talk into a little bit.
Mrs. McMillan?
Can you hear her now?
Can you hear her now? Can she hear us at all?
I didn't touch. Hello?
Yes, just a moment.
Oh, now. I guess I hit a button.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, is she muted? She might have been muted. Try from there. Just try.
What did the young lady say?
My question was, out of every character that you've written for, looking back now, is there a character that you wish you would have written differently?
No, I can't. No. No. No.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's not like getting married and you get a divorce and you realize, ooh, I'm glad I shouldn't have married him. It's not the same kind of thing. I mean, you write a novel because you're making an investment in somebody else's life, inside their heart and their soul. And you write out of curiosity and also because you care about the situation that this person is in. And I mean, that to me is what a novel partially is. It's an inquiry, and it's not a selfish act. It really isn't. And I often write about characters that I do not understand because they're character traits, because I would like to understand. And if you can do that, you are more empathetic, which makes it so that you don't judge as harshly. Because that's sort of what we all do. And, but I judge Donald. But no, I don't think it's because you have too much time. I mean, when you write a novel, it's an emotional investment that you're making. And I want to get to know these characters, and I give them problems that I may not necessarily understand or empathize with. Because I think Franklin in Disappearing Acts, I think he slapped, what's her name, Zora, which I forgot about. But the bottom line is that when he slapped her, I understood why. And it wasn't, I mean, I understood that this man was unemployed, was drinking, he felt worthless, and he took his anger out on her. And he was apologetic, but I realized I couldn't even believe it. When I was writing it, I was like, oh God, you know, and I couldn't believe that I am, because my mother, you know, she was abused. And, you know, and I mean, growing up, everybody, for the weekend, you go to the bar, and by the time you get, somebody's going to be in a fight. That's the way. And it wasn't like you got women back then. My mother didn't get beat up. She and my father fought, and she kicked his ass sometimes. Okay. You know, they would fight, but everybody did. And I knew when I grew up that I wouldn't, you know, you can't put your hands on me, and I'm not fighting anybody, but I wanted to be able to understand it. And so I had to turn the tables around and put myself in a man's point, see it from a man's point of view. What happens when you can't find a job? What happens when they choose the white guy over you? Because you're too tall and black and handsome. And that, you know, what happens? And so I empathized, and I didn't think that what he did was right, but I got it. And to me, that's the beauty of being able to write, because otherwise all of my characters would be me. And, you know, I ain't all that interesting.
Okay,
You know,
one of our listeners wants to know, where does your confidence to speak your truth unapologetically come from? And what would you say to Black people who struggle with this in white spaces?
but say that again.
Okay. Where does your confidence to speak your truth unapologetically come from? And what would you say to Black people who struggle with this in white spaces?
Get over it. I mean, really, who are you trying to impress? No. You know, I mean, in this day and age, I think that as African Americans, we have so much to be proud of. I mean, just so much to be proud of. And you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be famous in order to be validated. And, you know, and I think trying to prove something, especially to white folks, is a mistake. You know, you prove something to yourself. And that's the way, and my mother basically almost taught me that. She was trying. But, you know, you also have this thing that's called a personality. And, you know, you learn as you grow up that there are things that you like, that you don't like, things that you wouldn't dream of doing. You have confidence in yourself about certain things. And, you know, we all have weaknesses or things that we fear and all of that. But the bottom line is that you ultimately owe it to yourself to spend your entire journey of life trying to be a better human being, trying to get to understand yourself. And if you can do that, it might give you more more opportunities to be more empathetic and sometimes sympathetic with others. But learn what you like and what you don't like, and why not? You know, but my thing is that I want to be able to admit to myself when I did something wrong, when I was insensitive, when I was, you know, and I want to be able to be smarter. I just want to be smarter. And I want to be able to understand more. And everybody's not going to make me happy. Everybody's not going to please me, just like I piss people off. And, you know, but the idea is that life is a journey. And, you know, we go up a few steps. Sometimes there's a sideways, and sometimes you fall back down a few steps. But the idea is to get the most out of this journey so that the quality of our lives reflect who we are, what we stand for, what we care about, so that when we are gone, people remember you. And I'm not talking about based on books that you wrote. You know, I don't mean it that way. That you understand something about the human condition so that you forgive yourself and you forgive other people. And that, I think, has a lot to do with what helps make us love each other loving each other a lot easier, and just caring. You know, because if you call yourself being a writer and you don't empathize, all you do is judge, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, and you can't fake it.
Okay. Well,
except Donald Trump.
Uh-oh.
And I don't know, I can go down the list, okay? But I won't. Did that answer her question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, it looks like we have concluded our time. Are there any more questions for Ms. McMillan while we have her here? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Don't say that.
Yes, one more question. Yes, just come on up to the front.
Because I feel like it was just a technical issue.
So is this a writing group?
No, this is just a library audience.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So glad to have you here. My name is Damali Thomas, and my only question is there anything you know now that you wish you had known in the beginning of your writing journey?
Well, I could give you a list of things, but it doesn't really matter. The bottom line is when you first start out, you're always insecure. And you know, I didn't start writing books thinking, oh, golly, one day I hope I'm a best-selling author. Not even close. I didn't think about any of that. I learned, and that it's good to write without thinking. Write as if nobody's ever going to read it. And then when you finish, go back and read it. I've taught my students that over the years. And because everybody wants to edit. Everybody thinks every sentence has to be perfect. It does not. Your story is more important than the sentences. You can always go back and revise and edit. But to tell the story, I mean, you know, I often have had students, I've taught in a graduate program at the University of Arizona. I'm actually a tenured professor. I know I don't look like it, but I am. But I often had my students write about what scared them. And sometimes I would time it, but sometimes not. But to write without stopping, which when you do that, is a lot more honest. And write as if nobody is ever going to read it. That's what I learned. And I taught myself that because I found that I was a lot more honest and I didn't have to apologize. But that has nothing to do with editing or revising or improving. I'm not talking about that, you know, not even close. And a lot of young writers, unfortunately, they try to get every sentence, every word perfectly. And it can constipate you. The idea is just to write it as if no one's ever going to read it. You would be surprised how liberating it is because you can always go back. That's why they call this, it's called editing and revising. You can always do that. But when you write it as if nobody's ever going to read it, you guys try it. You'll be shocked. You will be shocked. And not half, but a lot of the stuff, the books that I've written, that's how I started them. I had no idea where they were going. And some of the stuff it landed, some of it worked, and some of it doesn't. But that's why you can go back. And for those of you in here who are up and coming writers, I wish you all the best of luck.
Well,
And
Ms.
don't
McMillan,
stop.
It's been indeed a privilege and honor. Thank you so much for visiting with us virtually.
Thank you all for your attention.
And
And if you
and
guys
thank
are drinking coffee, I need a cup of coffee.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. Everybody have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And don't worry about getting old. It's not as bad as it sounds.
All righty. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.